Hi, aloha everyone. I see we have folks who are just joining into the webinar, so we're going to give just a minute or so for the attendees to all be able to enter into the space since we just opened up. Mahalo for joining. Okay, I think we've got the majority of the people who are in the waiting room now in the webinar space. So mahalo for your patience while we opened up and the technology caught up to everybody who is waiting to join. My name is Christine Matsuda, and I'm with Pa'akai Communications. We're jumping in to just offer some extra arms and legs and assistance to the county in support of this Ho'okumuho program, which is the implementation of the CDBG-DR, which stands for Disaster Recovery Block Grant, which we've been hearing so much about. This webinar that we're doing right now is a follow-up to the in-person meeting, which was also broadcast Wednesday evening. And at that time, we said to all the folks who attended, we want to make sure that we provide lots of opportunity to offer some more detail, answer some more questions, especially as folks, kind of had a chance to hear more about it from their friends and family who may have attended, and process the information that was shared. And maybe folks have new questions. I want to also just mention that I'm not supposed to be talking right now because Mayor was intending to open our session today. And I just want to acknowledge that he's actually on his way to Lahaina right now, which is why he's not in the Zoom. But just really want to appreciate him and all of his efforts and his commitment to Lahaina and to this rebuild process. So a couple of things about our structure and purpose for this webinar this evening. The idea here is that we're going to introduce these Ho'okumuho programs. There are 3 of them that we're going to cover, 1 per hour. This is just like what we did on Wednesday too. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the first-time Homebuyer Opportunity Program. And then the second thing we're going to talk about, which is going to start at 4, is the Reconstruction Program. And then at 5 o'clock, we're going to start a new session talking about the Reimbursement Program. So if either of those other programs is more applicable to you, feel free to, put us on in the background and then come back and join at those intervals at 4 o'clock or at 5 o'clock for the reconstruction or the reimbursement programs, if that's what you're curious about. But that's how we're kind of structuring our time and why it's split out this way. The point is that we're here to get ready for the applications to open on August 11th, which is just coming up right around the corner. We want to make sure folks have the information that they need to get ready for those applications to go in, and have an understanding about what the programs offer, so you kind of know what you're aiming at. We're really interested in answering your folks' questions, and we have a bunch of folks from the county as well as from the county's contractor Horn here today to answer anything that we're able to. This presentation is being recorded, and so that's great because for folks who have work commitments or family commitments, this is going to be available online at the Maui Recovers website, probably up on Monday. So please, let folks know that this all is going to be available to view and review as needed. We also are looking at scheduling another community meeting next week, so that anything that is still a work in progress as of our conversation today, once we have all of those things final, we'll be back to make sure that everybody has the right and the most current information. So today we're going to hear from people representing several different roles in this program. There's the Office of Recovery and the CDBG team. There's Horn, who I mentioned. And then we also have our wonderful friends and colleagues from Kako'o Maui from CNHA. And then myself from Pa'akai Communications. And I'll be the moderator for our time together today. One note about questions and answers. I already said we're really, really interested in getting as many of your questions answered as we can. So what we're going to do is use the Q&A function in the webinar, and we have a whole team of people who are going to be answering questions live in writing as we go through the presentation. So you guys no need wait around for us to get to the Q&A section, which is the second half of each hour. But we do have that set aside for fully half of the time for each session that we're going to do every hour, just to answer questions. And so I'll be looking at the Q&A and elevating those questions. And if for some reason we're not able to get to yours, then we are totally committed to answering those questions in a follow-up format. Most likely, if that happens and we're not able to get to everybody's questions today, we'll look for the email that you used to register for this webinar to follow up with you if you attach your name to your question that you put into the Q&A function there. So with that, I'd like to introduce John from the Office of Recovery to get us going. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Christine. Aloha, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join this session, and apologies that Mayor couldn't join at the moment. I just want to start by saying, we really appreciate all the feedback from our first community meeting, and it really helped us shape how this one will go. We want it to be straightforward. We want it to answer your questions. We want it to be accessible. So thank you for your patience with us as we navigate this together with the community. The heart of Ho'okumuho and the CDBG-DR program, like it says, it's to reimagine and reconstruct the source of community as our ohana return. We want everyone that was affected to return, and we want them to stay home as well. We're looking to protect and preserve the Lahaina community and use these funds for that. So that's the heart of it for us. The HUD programs come with a lot of strings because it's a federal program. So we'll do our best to help the whole community and our team navigate that to help as many people as we can. Next one. So these are the three programs, as Christine said. We have our first-time homebuyer program, and really that one is intended to help folks that were renters become owners. And if you've been a renter and have been for the past 3 years, if you are in a survivor situation, you will be given preference for this program. That's up to $600,000. Then we'll go through the next two programs are the Homeowner Reconstruction Program. It's a really high level. It's up to $1.2 million. Those that have not yet begun construction, that's you. And then the Reimbursement Program is a program that we actually didn't have in the beginning. And when we did the action plan, we did those community meetings, that for those of you that came to those, we developed this program to meet a need that we understand exists in terms of just you completed your project and we'll be able to help with reimbursement to pay down that debt. So that's the intent of the programs. And like we said on Wednesday, we're going to use these the best way we can to meet the community where it is now. The funds came 500 days after the disaster, and that's not ideal for timing. We wish we would have had these a year ago so we could have kicked this off before, but that's, setting that aside, we have them. We're going as fast as we can. We're pushing HUD as hard as we can to make these programs work for Lahaina. So I'll just start with there. I'll turn it over to the experts, the subject matter experts in the room to do, the rest of the slides. So, but I'll be here to help answer questions, and I'm happy to engage with you. I hate that I can't see your faces, but we'll do that in our next community meeting. Aloha.
Okay, mahalo nui, Scott. Like to next welcome Kukui, who everybody already knows from CNHA and the Kāko'o Maui team. Oh, it's still muted, Kukui.
That might work. So aloha kākou. I'm just going to go ahead and touch on the first few slides for First-Time Homebuyer Opportunity Program. So as we mentioned, it's a pretty simple process. It starts with an application submission. Once your application has been submitted, you'll be assigned a case manager. The case manager will be the one helping you with your to finish the completion of your application. There will be an eligibility determination. So once all your documents are submitted, and then from there, we want to, make sure you help you find that home, and all the environmental reviews and reviewing of duplications that you've received. We just want to make sure that, we are not putting you in any type of situation where you might have had a duplication of benefits, and then get you home and real estate closing. This is an AMI program, so you would have to be within our income limits. On the screen is going to be the three percentages. We have a 50% AMI, 80%, and 120. Priority for this will start from the lower of the AMI, and then we'll go up to the 120. I'm going to be based on your household. It's very simple for the required documents for this one here: a government ID, your citizenship or legal resident documents, your income documents. We mentioned that some people might have had a difference in income since your tax return, so we can also take pay stubs, but it could be your 1040 or it can be your current income statements. Proof of your first-time home buyer status. And then mortgage pre-approval is not required at time of application, but it'll be highly recommended to have it. And then we just, again, need to verify what type of assistance you've already received to make sure that we're not duplicating any benefits, and then authorization and certifications.
Mahalo nui kukui. Do you think you could also just share a little bit about the role that your team is going to be playing in this process, and the how the centers are going to work?
So our centers, which are very familiar to our community, is going to continue to still be run by my staff. So the same faces that you've been seeing for the last 2 years out of the Kahului Kako'omai Resource Center, and then the Lahaina Office of Recovery. So you still see the same faces. We're just going to be that extra bonus for you all. We're going to continue to guide you all in your application process. So we're going to be the ones that are there working with you step by step as you submit your application. We'll be there to answer questions. And we're still going to be a community resource. So we're not taking away any of the community organizations that are in the center. You'll just get a double benefit here. You'll be able to complete your application with us and still see all your community resources.
Mahalo. Jeannie, would love to ask you to please pick up these next couple of slides with the program details and FAQ. And Jeannie is one of the subject matter experts from Horn.
Awesome. Mahalo, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. I do want to talk a little bit about the program goals for the first-time homebuyer program. As Kukui mentioned, the intention of the first-time homebuyer program is to bring home individuals who were displaced by the wildfires. So in this instance, that would be bringing home those renters who had previously lived in the burn areas. The second goal of the program is to keep properties in Maui County affordable for a long period of time. So to accomplish both of these goals, the programs will come with some terms. For the Homebuyer Assistance Program, assistance may be provided up to $600,000. That's going to be based on the amount that you need to make your down payment on a new home. In exchange for this $600,000, participants are going to be required to live in their home. They'll be required to purchase a single family home, townhouse, or a condo somewhere in Maui County. If you choose to sell in the future, you may have to sell it at an affordable rate to an income qualified buyer. And the term of that assistance is 99 years. So that term of having to sell to an income qualified buyer is 99 years. Next slide. Awesome. So we had a lot of amazing questions at our session on Wednesday. So we wanted to kind of get ahead of those and be able to answer those for those folks on the call today who may have those very same questions. So one of the question was about heirs. Obviously 99 years is a long time, and folks are probably going to be in a situation at some point where there's an heir or somebody that's going to need to take on that property. So if the property transfers during the compliance period, during that 99 years, then most likely, yes, the heirs will be able to accept the terms and continue forward living in that property, again, with the intention and the trying to achieve the program goals of keeping homes affordable. The next question we received was duplication of benefits. What does that mean? So in this program, it's a little bit different than some of the reconstruction and other programs that we'll talk about in a little bit. So HUD requires that we not provide CDBG-DR funds for the same benefit that other federal funds or other nonprofits have already provided funds for. For home purchase assistance, that means that if you're receiving home purchase assistance from a nonprofit or any other organization, you will take that into consideration as a potential duplication. I do want to emphasize though, that does not make you ineligible. If you're receiving other down payment assistance or other closing costs, you're still eligible for this program, just the amount may change a little bit. So I would definitely recommend that you submit an application and let the program staff work through your specific case and determine how much you might be eligible for.
Okay, and then let's hear from Dustin from the Kako'o Maui team, just to close us out here on the heavy content part of the presentation.
Mahalo, Christine. So like it says, applications open on August 11th, and there are a few ways to apply. First is going to be online at this new website, ho'okumuho.mauicounty.gov. Luckily for us, there's also going to be an app for the Maui Office of Recovery that will be available on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And of course, for those of us who are not so tech savvy, you can do the same thing you've been doing through Kako'o Maui. Come into one of our resource centers, provide your documents there, and your case manager can help you upload them, complete your application, and yeah. I know it's going to be difficult for people who are tired of reapplying to all of the different programs. So just keep in mind you will have a case manager with you throughout the whole process to help make that a little bit easier.
Okay, mahalo nui, everybody. Okay, John, Jeannie, Patience, if I could ask you guys, and Kukui as well, if I could ask you guys to put your cameras on and be ready to tackle some of these really interesting and very thoughtful questions that folks are already bringing forth. So just gonna get into it. This is in no particular order. We're gonna try and work through as many questions as we can. So Brian had a really good question about DHHL beneficiaries. The question is, do DHHL beneficiaries that lease their land qualify for these funds? Patience, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Mahalo for your question. Unfortunately, the funds would not provide assistance to existing DHHL beneficiaries or for properties on DHHL lands.
Okay, mahalo for the clarification, Patience. And so for homeowners that are on DHHL lands, really encourage you guys to circle up with the LTRG, circle up with the Kako'o Maui team so that you can learn what other resources are available to you. Just because there's not a particular lane for your property in this program doesn't mean that there aren't resources for you in the many other programs that are also being worked on by community partners and through other state and local and federal pathways. Okay, so let's see our next question. Is there an update for finding non-federal funds for those homeowners who are currently rebuilding? These programs seem to exclude this group of homeowners. So that's something we're going to talk a lot more about in the second and third portions. So the 4 o'clock hour and the 5 o'clock hour, because those are for the people who are either getting ready to be able to rebuild for the reconstruction program, or the reimbursement program. And you're right, those are for either at the very beginning or at the very end. So I just want to make sure that we answer that we don't have, and I defer to our group of experts here, a lot to share about federal funds that has, I don't think, come up in the last day since we had the Wednesday meetings. But again, there are lots of available resources through the LTRG and HCL and the Land Trust and Kaka'o Maui and our many other community partners. Anything else anybody wants to add on that?
Yeah, Christine, it's a really good point that you make. And I think it's worth noting even here is that if we can't find a solution just in general with the CDBG-DR funds, because they are so restrictive, what we are focusing on is those remaining needs with our other programs. And a lot of those programs are also funded in partnership with folks like HCF and the county to fill those gaps or to make people get home. I mean, that's it. So if this program doesn't work for you, we will be rolling out additional programs that are complementary to CDBG-DR. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Councilmember Paulton has a really good question. What is the flood zones prohibited? Can purchases be in SLR-XA?
We call it Slerexa. Can you guys take that one, Jeannie?
Yeah, absolutely. So for this program, any flood zone area that requires flood insurance, any area that FEMA would require flood insurance for is prohibited. And really the intention of that is to help keep the cost down for the homeowner and any unexpected expenses that may be caused by a flood in the future. So it's really a mitigation effort, but any area that requires flood insurance is prohibited.
And Jeannie, I got another one for you. This is from Maria.
Just real
Oh,
quick.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
I just want to, even as I'm watching this thing, it's like we are only talking about the first-time home buyer for this one right now. So just so you guys know, don't get confused. We'll talk about flood stuff on the other one too, but if your home was in a flood zone on the other programs, we'll have ways to deal with that.
Thanks, John. Okay, so the next question is for Maria. How do you prove that you're a first-time home buyer? What documents might be necessary?
So there's a few different ways that you can do this. And just to clarify too, a first-time home buyer is someone who does not currently own a home and has not owned a home within the last 3 years. Easiest way to do that is if you had a lease. However, we know a lot of folks did not have written lease agreements. So there's a few other ways. There's a certification. We could get a copy of a credit report for you. We could also take a look at any information provided by a landlord, even if you didn't have a written lease with them. So a letter or checks, things like that. There's quite a few ways we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I want to just elevate a couple of questions that were answered in writing and make sure everybody is able to take a look at those answers and have access to that information. There are a couple of really thoughtful questions that have come through there. One about if it's possible to use these funds to buy outside of Maui County. And the answer to that is no, this is really for buying within the county. These funds, and I'll just kind of continue to bring some of those really thoughtful answers back up to the fore as well. Jeffrey has a question: can Section 8 people use this to own a home?
Absolutely. So if someone is receiving a Section 8 voucher in support of their rent, sometimes that voucher can be converted to help out with mortgage. So what we'd have to do is take a look again at the amount of your voucher and make sure that you had all of your funds layered the right way so that we could determine how much assistance you may be eligible for. Again, would recommend you submit an application and have one of the program team take a look.
And Jillian asks, since homes are so expensive, can you use this money toward the home and qualify for a regular mortgage to cover the difference?
Yeah, so that's essentially what this program does. You would go to a mortgage lender, get pre-approved for whatever amount the mortgage lender determines that you can afford. And then the gap is the amount that can be provided by the program. So easiest way to explain this is an example. If you qualify for a $400,000 mortgage, you could potentially qualify for up to $600,000 from the HOP program. And at that point, you'd be taking a look at homes in the $1 million range.
Which then is a great segue to Tori's question, which is about the time frame. Tori said, is there a due date to use the awarded assistance if approved? So how does that work?
Yeah, great question. So once you are provided what we call a shopping letter, the shopping letter tells you how much you might qualify for and basically allows you to go out and work with any realtors in the community that are selling homes. You have about 6 months to locate a house. However, that deadline can be extended if you're having challenges finding one or finding just that right place to call home. Definitely that's something you should communicate with your program staff to let them know you're working on it, and an extension can be considered.
And then Jamie had a question that I think is actually really helpful to make sure that we're clear about which program we're talking about. So Jamie's question was, am I reading this correctly, that we need to build on the agricultural land, not purchase a separate home or condo on a different property? So actually, I think that that question is maybe a two-part question that has to do with two different programs. So if we could just maybe clarify a little bit. This is for purchasing, and it could be a single family home, it could be a condo, it could be a townhouse, but something that already exists. And then if we're talking about a reconstruction of a house that was lost, then that's the next program that we're going to be talking about, and we can share more detail about that. Anything else we want to add that I may have missed?
You covered it.
Super. Okay, so here's a really good question from Tony. If there's a property that's for sale that previously had a home on it, but they have not rebuilt since the fire, does this program apply for purchasing the land and rebuilding on it? So it's another, like, how do these programs fit together, and what kind of category are we in a scenario like that?
Yeah, so go ahead, John.
I thought you were going to beat me to that one. That's a great question that I haven't thought about yet. Do you have an answer, Jeannie?
Well, I just wanted to hear the first part of the question again. Is it the same owner from pre-fire or a new owner?
So the idea is, right, if there's a family who has decided that they're going to get out of their property, they're going to sell their property without rebuilding because they have made a decision to go live elsewhere, and somebody from Lahaina wants to buy that property and then build on it, which program should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so the reconstruction program, which we'll talk about in a little bit, would not be the right program for that. This program, the Homeowner Opportunity Program, does allow for homes to be newly constructed. There are some caveats there. Essentially, that homeowner or the home buyer would have to purchase the land, find a builder that's willing to construct like a spec home, and then funds from this program could not be provided until the certificate of occupancy was obtained. So again, we would be more than happy to talk more in detail about what that process looks like, but that's the basics.
Okay, thank you. There have been a couple of questions that have been answered in writing, and then a few more that are coming in. So I think this is a really good one to elevate for our attention. About what documents are needed to prove legal status and how are we defining that? And so specifically, Evelyn's question is temporary legal status eligible for this program? But maybe if you could speak more broadly to, different legal statuses and documentation.
Yeah, so this is a federal program. Funding comes from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And a requirement in the federal regulations for this program is that residents do have to be U.S. citizens or permanent residents. So temporary residents, unfortunately, are not eligible. Documents to provide proof of that residency status most likely are going to be a passport, but there are some other immigration documents that could be provided in the case of legal permanent residents.
Okay, thank you. This should be an easy one. Ashley would like us to confirm that this is a grant, not a loan. Yes, everybody's nodding their head. That's a yes. Grant, not a loan. Okay, super. So Krista asks, as long as we occupy the home, so we're meeting that requirement of being an owner occupant in that home, are we also allowed to rent rooms to other survivors? Many folks did this before the fire.
As long as the homeowner or home buyer is the maintains their occupancy as their primary residence. A lot of times that is indicated by a homestead exemption. If those things are in place, then it is your home. Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. There have been a number of questions as well, so I'm going to try and like group them together to get a common answer. And then, you guys, please feel free if this didn't quite meet what you were particularly asking about, ask some follow-ups. But there are some questions about like, who is this for? So can we revisit the question of maybe not eligibility per se, but how who's going to get prioritized for these programs? There are going to be lots of applications, and we are encouraging lots of applications. And so we're wondering from an intent standpoint, who are these supposed to be for? So for example, Janess, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, has a question about folks who are transitioning out of temporary housing and that sort of time frame that folks are in, and is this a program that could benefit them? There have also been questions that are getting answered in writing about if you maybe were not a Lahaina resident, but you still a first-time home buyer, could you be considered for this program? So could you guys talk a little bit about the intent and the prioritization of who the first-time home buyer program is going to be prioritized for?
Yeah, Patience, you want to take this one or start with it? Because the intent really is for folks that need it from Lahaina. Go ahead, Patience.
Yeah, so the intent of this program prioritizes displaced persons that did not own property. So we're focusing on first-time home buyers or persons that didn't own or have any interest in any real property 3 years prior to the application. And so that we don't violate any fair housing rules, we are prioritizing persons displaced by the Maui wildfires.
So
To take it a step further, we're also going to focus on the folks at 80% and under at the area median income, and then go up to 120%, as I believe Fukui mentioned earlier. Sorry, John.
No, it's just to reiterate, it is if you're in a temporary situation and you're a renter because of the fire, you will get priority for this program. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I wonder if it might be helpful to go back to the AMI slide, just for the purposes of this conversation, so that we can have that as a visual. Because there's a related question from Kahikili, which is, when applying for this program, are you able to, or maybe I'll add, should you have another person on your application who is a Lahaina resident to help boost your income? Maybe that's actually not what you want to do in order to be prioritized for this program. Jeannie, do you want to elaborate?
Sure, I can, just Christine's point is perfect. So the household size definitely changes the income limit. But just to reemphasize, there are income limits. So, and also the prioritization point that Patience and John mentioned, the households with the 80% AMI or less are being prioritized first.
And then there's also a question here about what year your income is being counted from, if that makes sense. So is it your 2024 income that applies within this table, or a different tax year? What year applies for your income in the AMI table here?
So income is demonstrated in most cases by your most recent tax return, which in this case would be the 2024 tax return. If you don't file taxes, that's okay. We can look at pay stubs, Social Security letters, retirement benefits, whatever you might have. But it is calculated based on the HUD income limits for this year, the 2025 limits. Again, using in most cases your 2024 tax returns.
And there's a question here, and I think we can go back to the Q&A slide. We might need to come back to the AMI table if people have more questions about it. Is this a credit-based program?
The program itself does not complete credit checks. However, you do have to pre-qualify for first mortgage. So that mortgage lender is going to require some credit level to be pre-approved.
Okay, great. Let's see. Oh, Cheryl, excellent
I see a
question.
lot of
Go ahead.
questions coming in. I see a lot of questions coming in about the types of properties that can be purchased. And I think what we're trying to do within this program is encourage the acquisition of a move-in property. So we're trying to get folks into permanent housing, and that's the whole intent of this property. So maybe we could keep that in mind as we proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Patience. It's a really good clarification. So Cheryl's question is, can you walk us through from the point when we have reached the final step of the intake process? So basically what happens next? How long is the waiting period to find a home?
So once intake and eligibility is done, there's a very short process by which we're going to double check our work and make sure that we meet all the federal requirements. After that, an eligible home buyer is provided that shopping letter. Again, it's in the homeowner's hands at that point to be able to go out and find a place. Program anticipates 6 months, all based on the home buyer and the lender and realtor and available housing stock.
Super, thank you. So Dusty had a clarifying question, something we were just discussing a second ago. There is an income limit, but we've also said that it's for all Lahaina survivors. So can we still apply even though you might be above the AMI? The answer is we want as many people to apply for these programs as possible to see what your eligibility is, and to see if there's something in these suite of programs, all three of them, that's right for you in your situation. So if you're not sure, please apply. Anything else anybody wants to add on that one?
No, it's a good point that we're going to reiterate over and over again. It's a limited pot of funds for housing, but it's significant. So as we go through our first rounds of eligible folks that will, become homeowners, we want to help as many people as possible. So if we can get the 80% and below served, and then we can bump up to 90, 100%, we want to do that. So if you are not sure and you think maybe I would make a little bit too much money or something like that, that's okay. Please come and apply, because that'll help us understand the problem as clearly as we possibly can in terms of how far we can stretch these dollars to help as many people as we can. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Dana has a question about this is something that we actually addressed a little bit earlier, but she has a really good follow-up. Many available homes in West and Central Maui are priced well over $1 million, and given that the first-time home buyer program caps assistance at $600,000, how does the county plan to support buyers whose mortgage approval won't come close to closing the gap? So say we've got a really expensive house that is just, an average home price for Lahaina, for West Maui, where we know home prices are expensive, and we get $600 from the program, and $400,000 from a home loan that they might be able to qualify for, what do you do about the next chunk that that is still outstanding if you can't finance that privately? Does anybody have any resources that we might be able to point people to, or guidance on how to think about problem solving that?
Everybody's jumping at once at that. It's a really good question. You know, the limit that we set was based on helping as many people as we can, and it, you know, intentionally to keep it, you know, it's not to be a $2 million home. So we're trying to, it's really meant to be a starter home for a renter. So that's why we're mentioning condos and apartments and stuff like that that are eligible. So it's just to get you into your first home kind of situation. We do understand the market is rough all over Maui, but we will also take that into consideration, and we'll bring that to our other partners outside of this program and see if there's anything that we can do. So thank you for that.
I want to. Oh yeah, go ahead,
If
Jeannie.
I can just
Sorry.
add to that, I would also share there are several lenders, national lenders that offer, you know, non-conventional type loans, especially for first-time home buyers that may lower the down payment assistance burden or have other creative flexibilities that can be layered with this program.
Yeah, and in fact, you know, for certain demographics of folks, I just want to also shout out the good work of Hawaii Community Lending. They're one of those amazing lenders that's been really active in the community here, but all over the state as well, in helping folks find creative financing solutions. So there are lots of experts out there to talk to, and we're happy to continue to help make those connections for folks as well. It has come up a bunch of times in the Q&A here, and so I want to revisit it in case maybe we didn't answer it properly or fully enough the first time. But folks seem to have a lot of questions about being able to use this first-time home buyer program to buy land instead of to buy a housing unit that might already have been built. So can we just talk a little bit more about how that would work in, or, you know, what how we should think about that in the context of these program parameters?
I mean, Jeannie, you talked about it once already. You want to reiterate one more time, and then I can try to take a stab at it after that, so we say it in different ways.
Yes, absolutely. So it can be used to purchase a newly constructed home, but I think the important thing to keep in mind is that the land and the construction is not something that can be paid for upfront through this program. The program can provide assistance once a final inspection has been gained for the house and that house is ready to move in. So essentially you'd have to find a builder that was able to construct the home. There are quite a few builders that do kind of infill housing and just build the house before they have a buyer. So that could be a possible solution in that scenario.
I think to say it a different way is, if there's a development that's underway, like a subdivision that's underway on Maui, and that spec kind of home or that condo between now and the next, you know, within the next year, say, is going to be complete, and we know that, you know, that's the kind of scenario that would maybe make sense for this program. But if you're talking about going out, finding a piece of property and then developing it yourself, the program is not intended to do that. So that may be a different way to say it.
Okay, super. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, so here is another really good question from Michaela. If we want to convert the property to a rental unit in the future or sell it at market price, is there a pathway to reimburse the grant?
Sorry, I was actually reading other questions when you asked that one. Can you ask that again?
Sure, no worries. It was if you want to convert so you use the program, you purchase your home as a first-time home buyer, and then later on you want to convert that property to a rental. is there a pathway to reimburse the grant? How does that work?
Jeannie?
So this comes back to the long-term affordability restrictions that are on the property. So there are some restrictions that would require you to sell that property if you were no longer going to occupy it as your primary residence. Again, the selling it to a low-income home buyer to make sure that the affordability of that unit remains within the community.
Okay, wonderful. Nick asks, I understand that there's an income restriction based on AMI, but is there any asset restrictions?
That is a very intuitive question. So for the Homeowner Opportunity Program, the home buyer cannot have any more than $600,000 in liquid assets at the time of application for the program.
Okay, super. All right. So I'm just taking a look, and thank you so much, everybody, for the amazing questions. Just want to reiterate, by the way, as we're going through these, we've got another 15 minutes or so in this session, and we're going to be going through to the 4 o'clock session and the 5 o'clock session on reconstruction and then on reimbursement. There are a couple of questions that we're coming through right now that are applicable to those other sessions. And so I just want to make sure that I say out loud that if we don't answer or prioritize your question right now, and it's more about construction than it is about first-time home buyer, that's wise, because I'm saving it for the next set of Q&A. Okay, so let's see, what else have we got here?
You're doing a great job, Christine.
Thank you, John. We got rapid fire questions coming in.
These are awesome questions, folks. Thank you for such thoughtful questions. I think these will really help everyone understand the program.
Yeah, these are really, really excellent questions. And that's in that spirit, Tori asks, if we have further questions, is there someone we can email or any way to get an answer? Kukui, do you want to restate how your team is going to be supporting this program and the availability of your staff to support folks through this application process?
Sure. So we are available in person. We're currently Monday through Friday. Times are going to be definitive soon, but we're going to be available in person, so the questions can come to us in person. I don't know if there's an email yet for this program specifically to be built, should that come about, but I'll have at least 6 staff in each of my centers who will be able to come in, answer any other questions that you might have. And I know that we're going to have a telephone number by the time this program launches, so you'll also have that to be able to call us, and we can definitely try to answer your questions.
Thank you.
In the meantime, we still do have the CDBG-DR number out there, and we have our email address out there that you can find. We could probably find that before the end of this session, but so we're still taking, Office of Recovery continues to take questions. So if you get a question into the Office of Recovery, if it doesn't happen to be in the right email inbox, we will make sure it gets to the right email inbox. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to go back to some more content questions. Kelsey asked, can this be used in conjunction with the Nahale o Maui program? And so this is a really good question because it gets to a bigger thing in that discussion Jeannie was leading us through earlier about duplication of benefits. So we've been talking in the Q&A a bunch about how this would work together with home loans. But maybe if we could just clarify a little bit, like in the universe of stuff that's available for folks who are trying to get into first home, how does that work with you if you have existing programs that are through private funding, loans, or grant funding through other sources together with this grant fund? How should we think about that?
Yeah, so CDBG-DR funding is intended to be the funding of last resort. So like Christine mentioned, you kind of start out with your mortgage, that's your baseline. And then after that, you can layer in additional funding sources. And if there's still a remaining balance that's needed to be able to close on a home, that's where CDBG-DR comes in. So if you're receiving assistance from those awesome community providers out there that are providing that, you can start with the pre-approval, put in their assistance, and then whatever is left over is where CDBG-DR comes in.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Jason has a question about renting or using this program to purchase a home that has an Ohana unit on the property. Jason says, can you purchase a home with an Ohana? Can you rent the Ohana to anybody for extra income as long as you are living on the property as the owner? So the primary property is owner occupied, but there's an Ohana unit or renting a room out or something like that. Is that allowable?
Yeah, so same answer, I think, is the renting a room, right? If you are purchasing a home that's going to be your primary residence, if there are ancillary structures on the site, then and you can again make the financing work to have that purchase, as long as you're maintaining that homestead exemption and living in the property as your primary residence, then it would be acceptable.
Okay, wonderful. So there's another question here from Cassidy about prioritization. So Cassidy asks, is this a lottery or is it first submissions get priority? Is it first come, first serve? We've talked a little bit about intent for who the program is for. So can you describe a little bit about how that is going to get evaluated as the applications come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So applications are processed as they come in order of priority. So if we get 10 applications in a day, those households that have first priority, the low income displaced from the wildfire renters, they will be processed ahead of the maybe 10 applications received from higher income folks.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. There's a question from Nancy that gets to a larger question that I know we got a bunch of feedback from on Wednesday as well, so it's a good one to raise. How does it work? Because we're talking about pretty long affordability terms, and we did a little bit of this in the Q&A, but maybe we can elaborate. For folks who are going to have their property in their wills, and passing it on to the next generation. The specific question from Nancy was about, is it okay to will it to a non-Maui resident, somebody that's not, currently on Maui? Is there anything about that question in particular or anything else we should be elaborating on about that inheritance question?
So I think the important piece there is heirs could potentially receive, be able to continue on with the deed restriction on the property. It's important at that point, if that should happen, that the heirs come in and have a chat with the county and see what is the best solution for their particular circumstance.
There's a question from Fabiola. Can two families buy one home since the market price is high? This gets to the theme that we've been seeing a lot of questions about, and just a recognition of how crazy the housing market is and why it's so difficult for first-time home buyers kind of in the first place. So to reiterate the question, if we're in a situation where that scenario we described earlier, where the house is just too expensive for folks to qualify for the mortgage or the home loan that would make up the difference between what this program can provide and the cost of the house, can we hui up? Can multiple families go in on a property together using this program?
Well, have you thought through this one yet, Jeannie? You
Yeah.
got it?
Yeah, so the household size and the household makeup is defined by the applicant at the time of application. So it is very important that the applicants put on their application all of the household members that will be residing in that property after the purchase.
Gina asked, is there a waiver on retirement funds? I think that that question probably refers to the income. So whether your pension or your Social Security would count toward your income if you're in that category.
Yeah, so the income limit is based on your adjusted gross income on your taxes. So if that income source does not show up in that calculation that the IRS uses, then it is not considered income for the program. So it's a single line on your tax return, that adjusted gross income.
And while we're on the
We,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would say, could we tag team on that? Because there's another question in the chat about filing jointly and then being able to either use that or can they use their W-2? We could
Yeah,
marry you
I
both.
was just going to go to that same question too. Yes. So yeah, Jeannie, do you want to continue? The question is if your tax return that you would use to demonstrate your income is a joint tax return, but maybe you are no longer joint with that person, and you want to just have your own income be the determinant for your AMI, how would that work? Can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the application, you'll check a box that asks the question, has anything changed with your income since you submitted your tax return? And if that box is marked, then you'll need to upload your most recent pay stubs or current income information.
Okay, well, we are almost to the top of the hour and there's so many more good questions. So if you folks don't mind, what we'd love to do is have our subject matter experts who are like furiously typing answers to your guys' questions just keep going on your questions while we transition to the next block of content. And so if you have the time to stick around to get those written questions answered, please do, and keep an eye on that Q&A section, that Q&A function for those questions to continue to get answered. And if we don't get to them, then like I said, we will be updating FAQs on the Ho'okumuho website so that we'll keep a running list of the questions that are coming up as top priorities for you folks. Get those answered so that everyone has access to that information. Just before we close out this topic and move to the next one, I just want to offer to any of our panelists here in the Zoom if there are any points you want to emphasize or last words on this particular program before we switch gears.
I think you covered it, Christine, but I just want to say thank you and mahalo to everyone on here. I mean, this is phenomenal the way you guys are asking questions. Not only is it thoughtful, but it's helpful to our community that's recovering. It will make us do a better job with these funds. So thank you so much for helping us think through that. Aloha, everyone, for this session. We have 2 more hours. So if you want to stick around and stare at us, you're welcome to do so.
Okay, well, mahalo nui for your time, folks. We really, really appreciate it. We're gonna let the panel take a drink of water and stretch for 2 minutes, guys, before we reopen to talk about the reconstruction program. So mahalo, and if you're not gonna hang on, thank you for coming. And if you are gonna hang on, then we'll see you in a couple minutes. Mahalo nui. Hi, everyone. For those of you who were with us for the first hour, thank you for sticking with us. And we had an amazing, super good discussion with really, really thoughtful questions about the first-time homebuyer program. In this next hour, we're going to keep going and we're going to talk about the Reconstruction Program, which is one of 3 that are launching for applications on August 11th as part of the Ho'okumu program, which is funded by the CDBG-DR disaster recovery funds from HUD, the federal funds that were granted to Maui County. For those of you who participated in the last hour, the first little section here is maybe going to be a little bit of repetition, but we have a lot of people who are just joining because they knew that the 4 o'clock time is when we're going to talk about this program that perhaps is of interest to you folks. So we're going to have just a little bit of repetition, but these are really important points, and we want to make sure that for folks who are just joining now that they have all the same context as those of us who are on the webinar from 3 o'clock. So thank you very much for your flexibility and your understanding on that. My name is Christine Matsuda. I'm with Pa'akai Communications, and we were brought on to just help a little bit, add some extra capacity with county, specifically in service of this Ho'okumu program. And so I'm going to be your moderator for our 3 back-to-back webinars that we're having today, and we're starting number 2. The purpose and the structure of this meeting is that we are here to introduce these new programs, the 3 of them that are launching on August 11th for applications under Ho'okumu. The purpose is to provide some context and then answer questions. And so we're anticipating holding at least half of the time this hour really just to dig into the questions that you guys have and make sure we're providing as much information as possible, as transparently as possible to all of our community. This presentation is being recorded, which is great because we know a lot of people have conflicting obligations, work, family, all kinds of things going on all the time. And so this recording is going to be available on the Maui Recovers website on Monday. Please make sure that friends and family who maybe weren't available to join this conversation today and didn't go to the Wednesday meeting know that the recording is going to be available and can watch it back and send us any additional questions that folks might have. It did come up in the last hour how folks can follow up for additional questions if we don't make it to the list of the questions that people have today. We have a couple of ways, right? So first, we're going to be taking questions in the Q&A function of this webinar. It's working great so far, and we really appreciate all the really excellent questions that people are putting in there. We have a team of folks, subject matter experts, who are answering in real time, just typing away behind the scenes so that if you have a question that comes up to you and while we're still in the middle of the slide presentation, please ask it because there are folks who are ready to start answering those, in real time. And then when we do get to that Q&A section at the second half of the hour, we'll be looking at those questions that have already come in and then the new ones that are coming. And I'll be moderating a sort of Q&A discussion with the speakers to make sure that we get as many of those really thoughtful questions answered as we can. And then if we miss them, we will do our very, very best to follow up with you folks, either using the email address that you provided when you registered for this webinar, or we're going to be continually updating the FAQ that will be posted on the on the Ho'okumu website. And so we want to make sure that this information gets out to as many community members as clearly and consistently as possible. We also have an email address that Stephanie put in the chat earlier, but maybe we could repost it again. CDBG-DR@mauicounty.gov, which is another great place to send your questions. And then as we're going to get into it, as we go through the presentation, the Kako'o Maui team from CNHA is also a part of this larger effort and available to, continue to assist folks in the way that they have been in navigating this process as well through their centers. So just a few words on how we're going to really try our very, very best to answer as many of your guys' questions as we can. We'll just note that the chat function is not turned on for attendees to chat. But if we have stuff like that email address that I just mentioned, that we're trying to share out for folks, that'll appear in the chat box, but we really want you guys to use the Q&A function. That's how we're going to be able to see your questions. Okay, so just what we're going to go through in our session today. We have about an hour for this particular topic, and then on the reconstruction topic, and then we're going to go to reimbursement for the final hour of this webinar. We're going to do a program overview. We'll talk about eligibility. We'll talk about required documents, compliance, and ways to apply. We also have been really appreciative of the thoughtful questions that have come in since the in-person community meeting that we had on Wednesday. So we've added some FAQ that are based on the questions that we received on Wednesday and throughout the week. So we just really want to mahalo the community for that, giving us that feedback and allowing us the opportunity to come back with some answers to those questions that we know folks have. Presenting this information today, we have John from the Office of Recovery. We have Jeannie from Horn, who is one of the amazing subject matter experts who's really guiding us through this process. And then we have Kukui and Destin from Kako'o Maui. We're just so grateful to have them as partners, and they're going to be sharing some information with us as well. And we're all part of this larger effort, myself included, to really support in whatever ways that we can the rollout of this program to make it as successful for you folks in the community as we possibly can. So John, over to you.
Thanks, Christine, and thanks again, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate. This is Friday, right? On a Friday evening at 4 o'clock, when I'm sure you'd rather be doing other things, you've logged in to listen here. So we really appreciate that. But we're doing that purposely because we're trying to engage with you folks as much and as often as we can so that everyone understands how to apply, how to access these programs, and how to get home. I mean, that's what at the heart of these programs. The whole Kumu whole program is just bringing folks home and bringing them home to stay. You know, that's what we want. That's what's behind the intent of the funds for housing. We want to protect and preserve what Lahaina is. We hope that this comes out straightforward and accessible to everyone. You know, I think we're learning as we go, like all of us, how to best convey how these programs are going to work. Again, those questions that you folks are asking are pretty amazing, starting on Wednesday, and we'll continue that tonight. This is a different venue. I said it before, I wish I could see your faces and your reactions, but we'll have to deal with the Q&A together. But thank you so much for being here. Do I have another slide? Sorry. Yeah, just to let us know where we are. We are in the middle. We just did first time home buyer, the blue one, and I am colorblind. The middle one I think is green. We are in the single family homeowner reconstruction section of this series tonight. So this one is ideal for folks that have not yet begun reconstruction of their fire impacted home. So that's what this program is about. Up to 1.2 million in assistance, basically reconstructs that destroyed home. So if you haven't started and you don't even know how to start, please come see us, please come apply. This program is intended to help those folks that can't do. That's what it's about. So with that, I'll turn it over to our I think it's Jeannie, and maybe it's Kukui, but to run you through the details of the program. I'm going to stay online to help answer questions if stuff comes up that others can't. But thank you again, and aloha.
It's me. Hello, Kako, everyone. For those that weren't on earlier, my name is Kukui. I work with Council for Neighborhood Advancement with Kako Maui. Just a little background, we will be the centers that are going to be having the case managers specific to this program. You'll be able to do your applications in person with us. You'll also be able to come in and ask us questions in our centers. Currently, our hours are going to still be Monday through Friday, pending confirmation on the exact hours. But CNHA will be the ones helping you and guiding you through your actual applications. With that being said, can I get the next slide? Program overview for this is just the application. This one is, again, our application does start on August 11th, so nothing is available till then. Once your application is submitted, you'll have someone assigned to you from our team. And then from there, they'll work with you to determine your eligibility. We'll definitely do a review of duplication of benefits to make sure that nothing is crossed over or nothing that can get you disqualified. There will be an environmental review. Next thing you know, we'll assist with the award. And then we will assist with the contractors as well, pre-construction, construction, and finally project completion. The maximum assistance for this can go up to 1.2 million. This is an AMI requirement per the HUD standards. On the screen, we have listed what the AMIs are: 50%, 80% to 120%, and 140%. Required documents, government ID is needed. Proof of home ownership or and primary residence, so owner occupants, is going to be one of the big things for this. Your citizen or legal resident documents, proof of your current mortgage, your income documents. We know that sometimes your income might have changed, so we would prefer your tax returns, but if something happens, we'll also take your pay stubs. Documentation of other assistance received. Again, this is to make sure that you don't have any duplication of benefits and you don't, for any reason, have to repay something back or get in trouble later on down the road. Authorization and certifications, and then proof of current property taxes.
And Jeannie, I'm sorry, quickly, I'm going to invite you again in case we have folks who weren't on the first call to just, the first hour, I should say, maybe just talk about the role that Kako'o Maui is going to play in this process and the centers.
Okay, sorry, I thought I covered that. So seeing our Kako'o Maui offices, which is the one in Kahului that we've been operating for the last 2 years, as well as our Lahaina Recovery Center that we've been operating for the last year, is where our staff is going to be placed, who's going to be the ones helping you through your application process. It's the same faces that you've seen for the last 2 years, so hopefully the familiarization helps, and we are here to help you. There was one thing I did want to mention, as some of us have already submitted all these documents multiple times to different people, whether it be a DCM, whether it be your granddaughter or daughter has your paperwork, you're allowed to do to have someone assigned to you, which is going to be called a communication designee, that you can assign, as your person who will be able to speak on your behalf.
Mahalo. Jeannie?
Sorry about that. My video was a little slow. All right. So to cover the program for reconstruction, again, I just want to kind of go into a little bit of the program's goals. So first program goal is to help folks get home as soon as possible. We want to make sure that residents of Lahaina return to Lahaina. Second priority for the program is to keep those homes that homeowners are returning to affordable for a long period of time for those local families, and to set those families up for success, so that in the future families have access to affordable housing, and while at the same time balancing the financial interests of those local residents who are looking to return home now. So a way that we can try to accomplish this is to impose a few long-term affordability terms on this assistance provided. So up to $1.2 million is available. Again, this is based on your unmet need. So as mentioned before, we'll take a look at your insurance, any funding received through FEMA or the SBA. We'll take all of that into consideration and determine how much funding you'll be eligible for. As a condition of receiving those funds, you will have to agree to live in the home as your primary residence. These terms might vary based on the amount of assistance provided, and the range, the length of time that these terms will apply will also vary based on the amount of assistance provided. So you'll notice up here that this says draft. This is because we got some awesome comments and feedback from the community during the meetings, and want to make sure that we get this right, that the county really listens and understands what is best for the community moving forward. So these terms are still being finalized, and more information will be made available as soon as we have it. So like I mentioned, we got a lot of really great questions on Wednesday at the community meeting. So we wanted to tackle some of those right here in the hopes that we can address questions that you all may have as well. So the long-term commitments, again, up to 99 years, potentially, depending on how much assistance is provided. So again, if your heirs are taking over the property at some point during that long-term period, they could potentially be eligible to inherit the property and inherit those restrictive covenants as well. Again, those will be evaluated by the county on a case-by-case basis. Talked about this a little bit already, but duplication of benefits in the case of reconstruction is any benefit that's received from FEMA, SBA, insurance that is intended for use of reconstruction of your home. This does not make you ineligible for the program. If you received insurance or if you received any of those benefits, you are still eligible. The amount of the benefit may be different depending on how much you received. So that's a calculation that our program team will be doing with each individual applicant. So definitely encourage you to submit your application and have us help you work through those calculations. All right, some other great questions here. What do we do if we are in the process of rebuilding? So at this point, the reconstruction program is intended for individuals who have not yet started construction. We understand that a lot of folks are maybe midway through the process. Unfortunately, this program is not intended for that population. If you've started construction, you're halfway through and you need some additional financing. At this point, we definitely would encourage you to reach out to existing community providers that are providing that type of assistance and helping folks just fill the gap and finish that last little bit of construction that they have. But know that the county is also reviewing to determine if there's any other solutions that can be implemented. When you're done with reconstruction, we'll talk about this program next. But if you're close to finishing and able to finish on your own, you could potentially be eligible for reimbursement as well. All right. Next question is, what if I already spent more on my builds than the benefit cap will recover? This one is actually for reimbursement. So I think we'll tackle that one down in the reimbursement session.
All right, mahalo, Jeannie. So again, ways to apply. There are a few ways. First is going to be at this new website, ho'okumuho.mauicounty.gov. Second will be through an app that will be available on both the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. That is the Maui Office of Recovery OOR app. And then, of course, in person at one of our two resource centers at Lahaina Gateway or Maui Mall. Like Kukui mentioned, you will be assigned a case manager that is specific to this program. But if you're already working with a disaster case manager, you have a family member that's assisting you, or you'd like to assign someone who might be more familiar with your case, you can do that the same way that you would have done with FEMA or SBA by signing a form of release of information. So there will be multiple ways to get that tackled. I just want to reiterate that if you are not sure whether or not you should apply, at least get it started, get your foot in the door, and allow the team to help you determine your eligibility. Thank you.
Okay, let's get into some questions. You guys are already giving us amazing, really, really thoughtful questions in the Q&A. So with no further ado, I'm just going to start elevating some of those questions and asking our speakers to address some of those. So if I could ask Kukui, Jeannie, John, and Patience to come back on camera and stand by. Okay, so Dina's been waiting very patiently because she had a question that was entered from the last section and said, okay, this is a reconstruction question. Dina's question is, how long do you take to consider priority? Will you only consider applications received on 8/11 until a submission end date? So I think within that window. Then when is the deadline for us to be notified of eligibility? And when would be the potential receipt of funds? So this is a really good multi-part question. Maybe we can just break it down a little bit. There's embedded in this, I think, a question of how prioritization is going to be handled, as well as when those determinations of eligibility are going to be made. So then when would an applicant know if they are going to be moving forward with the program?
All right, I'll take that one. So application priority, again, applications are processed in order of priority in the order in which they were received. So applications will be open starting on August 11th and remain open for about 6 months, although that could be extended or until enough applications have been received to expend all of the funds. So that's, I think, the first part. Second part is, sorry, Christine, can you help me out with the second part again? There was a lot of questions.
Yeah, a lot of really good questions.
Yes.
So I think you actually answered maybe the 1 and 2 together a little bit.
Okay.
And then the third one is, when are you going to find out if
Got it.
your
Okay.
application was approved?
Awesome.
And when do you get the funds?
Awesome. So applications get assigned to case managers, normally the same day that they come in, if not the day after. From there, that case manager will contact you. It normally doesn't take too long. They'll reach out to you and let you know the next steps of the process and keep you up to date the whole time. Some of it is a little bit of back and forth. So if we need some additional documents from you, we'll send those out with a timeline on when they can be submitted. So the intake window and like the eligibility timeline, could be different for every single individual.
Okay, thanks, Jeannie.
Mhm.
Hannah also has been waiting very patiently to get this question answered. Will a construction manager still be procured in summer 2025? This was stated in the first RFP that the county issued. So this is a very well-informed question, and maybe for folks, it might be helpful to just describe a little bit about how the process will work for the actual construction when the applications are getting approved and people are being moved into the reconstruction period.
Yeah, I can take that one. So this is talking specifically about how the county overall is handling this program and these funds. So we will still be putting out a construction management RFP. We're working on that right now. It'll go out soon. I'm not going to give an exact date on when that'll go out, but it really needs to come in a little bit later in this process. So while we get these programs up and running, we're working on that. We'll get that out. And then there will be construction management that's part of this. So unlike like an owner builder situation. So for those that don't know what I was just talking about, if you're just thinking about your own personal, house project, maybe can you go back to the slide that shows the processes, like just the steps that Kukui went over? That might help it with this. So you'll run through all of these steps on the left, all the way through award, and then that construction management starts to come in like during construction. So this process does take time. I don't want us to give the impression that we're going to just turn around and start building houses the second that you get an award. The HUD process is significant. It takes time. So we'll come back as we have better dates to share with the community on that time process. But really good question. Thank you.
There are a couple of questions here that are new ones, and so thank you for bringing these to the table. The questions are coming from people who own condos that were destroyed in the fire. And so what kinds of programs or potential benefits are available for them? Because they're not first-time home buyers, so they wouldn't, necessarily be applicable for the last program that we just talked about. And because this is for single-family homeowner reconstruction, as opposed to people who own units in multifamily housing, situations, townhomes or condo buildings, what might be available for them?
Yeah, that is a super great question, and definitely a unique situation, or a little bit of a challenging one, right? Because folks are homeowners, but you're right, it is in a multifamily structure. So unfortunately, for the single family reconstruction program, it is intended for single family units. A single family, according to HUD, is 0 to 4 units per structure. So any of those condo owners that are in those multifamily type structures would not be eligible under this program. That being said, there may be some ways to potentially explore reimbursement down the road once the condo complex is reconstructed. But I know the timing on that may not line up for some folks. The other thing to consider is this is just the first 3 of quite a few other CDBG-DR programs coming. So there may be other opportunities down the road for the condo association as a whole.
John or Patience, is there anything else you want to add
Yeah.
about the other programs that are coming down the line?
Yeah, I wouldn't just, this again, I would just, if you're in that situation, I'd still want you to apply. Because as much as we want to have a program that fits every little thing, there's always going to be the ability to make some exceptions for a very unique case. So I don't want to give the impression that we can't ever help on those situations. So we want to be creative and help our survival community. We have a lot of rules and a lot of guardrails up, but we are taking the approach that we want to try to help as many as we can. Sometimes we have to go back to HUD for exceptions for things. So I'll just leave it at that. But please, I don't want to discourage folks from applying. If you have a unique scenario, apply, we'll look at it. The other thing I would say is, just like Christine mentioned, is this is just the first 3 programs, and all of the multifamily projects that were destroyed have some level of eligibility because they were destroyed and they're in that area, and we know that. So we're developing programs and helping fill gaps for those projects. It's kind of similar to a single family homeowners thing, where you would look at the financial stack. How much insurance do they have? How much benefit did they get from FEMA? And you just kind of run down the line, and then the program would come in and help, especially a low to moderate income facility come back. So there are other programs that will work in conjunction with these programs in some cases. So today we're simply talking about the program that's in front of you, which is the single family reconstruction program. Thank you.
Yeah, mahalo, John. There are a couple of questions coming through about trusts. So one question is about how should we think about the income limits when you've got a property that's actually owned by a family trust, and whether that would qualify, and how do we understand how those limits, would apply to that kind of a scenario. And then there's also another question, and I think, this is not going to be uncommon, right? In a place that has so many longstanding generational families like Lahaina does, that like there's another question here about you've got a beneficiary of the trust is a local family where the beneficiary can't take ownership of the property until they reach a certain age. But in the meantime, the property is legally required to be, not legally required, but the property needs to be rented and collecting rent. And then the beneficiary will take the property when they're of age. So there are lots of scenarios here, right? When you've got a house or a property that's held by a family trust, multiple owners, how do we think about that, both in terms of the eligibility requirements for the kind of income table that we looked at, and also just like how that application process works for families who have properties in family trusts?
Absolutely. So the application question is the easier one, so I'll take that one first. So again, the person who is the primary resident of that structure, the person who is the primary resident at the time of the fires and still owns and plans to reoccupy that property will be the applicant. So the household income is based on those same criteria. Anybody who is going to be occupying the property as their primary residence after reconstruction, that is the income that will be considered for eligibility. Trust ownership is definitely not a disqualifier. However, it does have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis because of some of the terms of those trust agreements. So that would be something that, again, submit your application. We'll work with you, read through those trust documents with you, and figure out how we can navigate eligibility.
Hey, thank you, Jeannie. So there's a question from Mary, which might actually be a great one to help us differentiate between what folks should think about in the reconstruction part and what people should think about in the reimbursement part of these conversations, and kind of what a benefit is available where. But before I go and ask that question, I just want to like do a little PSA plug here that it's only one application portal. And so even though we're saying like, oh, this program is for this and this program is for that over there, it's the same website and the same application that you start with. And so if by the end of these 3 hours, you're still like, I am not sure which program I'm supposed to be in, that's fine. Go to the application, start your application. And then if you go down one pathway and we realize actually you're better suited for the other path, then the folks at the office, the case managers that Kukui described that are going to be working on this, will be the ones who are like, hey, let's help you switch gears into this other program because this is where you're going to get the best benefit for your situation. And so, you know, we're doing a lot of differentiation in our conversation here about what is what in which program, but the point is just apply so that we can help you guys figure out what makes the most sense for your particular situation, because we all know everybody's situation is different and really unique. And so finding, you know, one size fits all answers to some of these complicated questions is just, you know, that's not always realistic. So that's why those case managers exist. That's why Kukui's team is going to be so important to continuing to kind of like help people through this process and answer these questions. So Mary's question is, she says, I'll contribute my insurance and HUD funds to cover the gap, similar square footage to my original house. What about cost of driveway, carport, or ADUs? And what about funds from the lawsuit? So there are a couple really good questions embedded in here. One is, so are we in construction? And therefore, when POW, then we're going to apply for reimbursement? Or are we in a place where we've got plans going, maybe not actually under construction yet, and trying to figure out what this program would cover? And then there's the second part of this, which is what about funds from the lawsuit, which has to do with what Jeannie described earlier around duplication of benefits and how does that work? How does that all work? So maybe I can ask Jeannie to just talk quickly about that duplication of benefits thing. That's a phrase that keeps coming up. We want to make sure we really understand what that is and how it works together. The funds that are coming from other sources, whether it's settlement from the lawsuit, grants that you may have received, you know, other benefits, together with these kinds of programs. So say you have taken in some funds from, you know, any of those sources, does that mean that you're not eligible for this program, or how would it affect how much you're eligible for? How does that work?
Yeah, so settlement funds do not affect eligibility. None of those funds that you mentioned, FEMA or otherwise, affect eligibility. Everyone is still eligible to apply. At this time, there are still many conversations and lots of very smart folks that are reviewing all of that settlement information and making a determination as to how that will work with this program. John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing again is don't don't worry about whether or not, I mean, I know you're going to worry about it, but don't think about it in terms of, well, if I got this and I got that, then maybe this or that. Please apply. That that's the best advice I could give you for this program. If you think that you fall in the categories that this fund's intended, we talked a lot about intent earlier. It's intended to get people home. Please come apply, and we'll assess that duplication of benefit together with the HUD team, the DR team, and the attorneys that are, all working on that very problem right now. But we don't, just overall, we really don't see we're not really thinking about the settlement in terms of whether that's a duplication of benefit or not. We're focusing more about, are you eligible for the program, and like, or do you have an SBA loan or stuff like that? How much is your insurance? That's the things we're focused on.
So we also have a bunch of questions coming through that are kind of more process questions that we haven't really gotten into yet in the live space. So questions about how does it work when you're going to select a blueprint? Can you talk a little bit more about that process? Who's choosing the contractor for your particular property? How does that get determined? So can you guys go into a little bit more depth about what people can expect once they're moving into that like sort of planning and construction phase once their applications have been approved?
I mean, I can start, Jeannie, and I know you can finish my sentence probably at this point, but this will be a highly controlled process by the program. This is not like an owner builder program. This is not like I'm going to go out and I know the guy I want to build my house. That's not what this program is. This is, if you get in this program, we basically develop a spec set of plans and it'll fit within the community. And if you're like, say, we got this question last one, like if you're in an HOA, we'll meet the HOA requirements, of course. But if you're not in an HOA, there'll be a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, whatever you had before, and it will generally fit on your lot. And then our contractors and our construction managers will manage the process all the way through. So it's not at all like an owner builder scenario. That's just kind of the overall take. But I saw how some of these questions came across. I think it's worth asking and answering some of those. So Jeannie and Christine, if you want to take it from there. I just want you folks to understand, like, this is like a full service program for home building.
I think full service is a great way to explain it, definitely. So, and I do also think it's important to emphasize that none of the costs associated with, completing any of the compliance requirements or getting the permits or getting the floor plans, none of that is on the homeowner to pay. That is all something that is being paid for by the program for eligible applicants.
And in terms of being able to select like what kind of design you want, and is it a 1-story or a 2-story? Jay has a question in the Q&A about if you're trying to build a 2-story instead of a 1-story, but you only had a 1-story pre-fire, but your total square footage is going to be roughly the same. Like, are those options that are going to be available to people?
So the specifications for construction are still under development. So we do anticipate, multiple options available to folks. I don't know exactly what they're going to look like yet. As John mentioned, they'll be compliant with any, local requirements, historic requirements, and certainly any code requirements as well.
So speaking of code requirements, there are also a couple questions here about folks who had homes that pre-fire had square footage components that were unpermitted, or maybe even structures that were completely unpermitted in the first place because that wasn't required for their particular situation. How does that work in the context of this program?
As a general rule, the program will reconstruct homes according to the last permitted square footage of the pre-fire structure.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
So if you had a whole bunch of stuff on your property that wasn't permitted, that's not going to count. That's a simple way of putting it.
Okay, and we're just going to continue on this theme because we're getting a lot of questions in this area. Could we elaborate on what do we mean by standardized models? You know, are we required to pick from a certain set? Are we going to have another community member was asking, like, are these going to be cookie cutter homes? What should we expect from the offerings? Understanding that hasn't all been fully developed just yet.
They'll be tasteful homes, but they'll be spec homes. They're not going to be mega homes. They're not going to not fit in the neighborhood. They're gonna meet the need. The intent is to meet the need. So yeah, I think you folks will be happy with the designs that come out. You know, that stuff is all being worked on now. And then there may be some designs that are out there now that we can adapt and use into this program that kind of fit the mold of what HUD wants to see. There's a whole reasonableness to this that we have to follow, that HUD requires us to follow. So you can't have all granite countertops in the very top line of stuff. It's going to be nice, you know, I don't know, Lowe's, Home Depot kind of stuff, but it's going to be nothing high end and also not junk either. So it'll be a nice home, but just a standard issue.
There are also some questions coming in from folks who are at like the very, very earliest stages of trying to rebuild. And so like there's someone here asking about, I have already pulled a permit, but I actually haven't started building yet. Or I have a permit and I have plans. Can I use those plans? Those kinds of questions if I want to participate in this program. So what's the threshold? I'm going to clarify and maybe like ask a little bit more detailed question to hopefully get some answers for folks. What's the threshold where you guys consider that construction has started on a home, in which case they should be looking ahead to the reimbursement for when they're POW? Or like, can you unwind stuff that maybe you've already done, like pulling permits for a different set of plans, if you do want to participate in this reconstruction program?
That's a really good question, but if you've pulled permits for plans on the property, that wouldn't fit with this model. I guess I would start there. If they're, you know, if the basic footprint of the house that you permitted was generally the same as the footprint of the home that we would come up with, you know, there are some things there that may make, you know, sense, but you're essentially, for this program, you're starting from the beginning. So you've already got permitted plans. That's already too far along in terms of this process. Jeannie, do you want to weigh in on that?
I think you covered it.
Now, I will say we heard loud and clear, and we're continuing to hear loud and clear that a lot of people have started. So it's not that we didn't know that. We do know that. It's very, very messy for HUD to get into the middle of a construction project. The environmental review alone is a big deal, and you'd have to start there. But because we know that's a big problem, because recovery knows that's a big problem, if we can morph CDBG-DR programs to help fix that problem, we will. But we are also leaning on our community partners in that scenario to help folks get to the finish line without DR, and then look at the possibility of whether those eligible folks could be eligible for that reimbursement program, which is the one that we're going to talk about next. So please keep giving us your comments, your scenarios. It helps us develop how we react to this problem. Again, it's the timing of this thing it's not ideal. We know that. We're just 500 days after the disaster is a long time just to get the money. And in those first 500 days, it's like everybody wants to get home. We understand it. We don't want to penalize you for that. We're just explaining this program. There are a lot of people that haven't started yet that we did talk to that are going to be able to take advantage of this program. It's going to be great, especially our kupuna. We know several that came up to us on Wednesday and they're so excited for this program. So, and that's what it's for. If this one doesn't work, and we still have this big need, we will continue to work towards those solutions.
Okay. Thanks for that, John. And that's actually a really good, like, kind of prelude to what we're going to be talking about in the next hour, the reimbursement program, which is really an acknowledgement of the fact that so many people had to wait so long for this kind of a major scale reconstruction program to happen, that you guys move forward. And so that's why, even though it wasn't in the original plan, that the reimbursement program got introduced, because it's a recognition of where we are, right, in the overall kind of trajectory of this thing. So there's another different question here that is new to the conversation as well. So I want to make sure we voice it. If you have a situation where your home was not completely burned down but suffered major damage, do you still qualify for that program? And so I guess maybe another question that is embedded in there, or as a related question, is what if you decided not to participate in the Army Corps effort to clear lots, and maybe your lot isn't cleared? If you're in that sort of a scenario where you have a structure but it's not habitable as a result of the fire, kind of where are you at, and what do you need to do if you want to participate in this program?
Well, I guess I'd start with saying, in terms of the debris cleared, I think we had like a 99.5%, or maybe even higher than that, folks that joined that program. So that's less than a couple. I mean, I think it's less than 5 maybe for the entire area. So it's a pretty small problem set. So we could take that problem set as a one-off. And then there was the other question about partially burned.
Yeah, if you had major fire damage,
Yeah.
you still qualify.
Yeah, I think we can talk about that one separately too. It's not this program, but again, like that reimbursement program that we're going to talk about, there may be some eligibility there depending on your situation.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure that we give airtime to our panelists who have not been answering as many of these questions. So just, kukui, patience, if you guys have anything you want to add on any of these last round of questions that we've been answering, just want to open that space for you folks if there's anything that we may have missed that you want to make sure gets added into the discussion. Okay. Well, I will just kind of take another look through these questions that have been answered in writing. And big mahalo to the team who's sitting behind the computer screens, just making sure that all of these questions get answered. So you guys are amazingly efficient. I think we've addressed most of the really big kind of themes that are emerging in our conversation. So before we switch gears to talk about reconstruction in the last block of this time, reimbursement in the last block of this time, I just want to ask if there are any closing thoughts, any things that our panelists want to emphasize that were discussed or were not discussed in the questions that people were asking. Just any last thoughts?
I think John popped off. So do you want to cover last thoughts, John?
Sure. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeannie. Go ahead.
All right. All right. I'll just wrap up and say, definitely a lot of unique situations out there. Re-emphasize for probably the 100th time. I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing it, but please submit an application. Let us let the program team work with you. Kukui's team is amazing, as I'm sure most of you know, so that we can assess, you know, what might be eligible, and if not for this program, are there other resources out there that may be available? So that's it.
Yeah, it's not a, you know, one program fits all scenario. So, you know, some of these questions that you're asking they're really good questions, and maybe it doesn't fit this program, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop trying to find the right program or the right resource that helps. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, everybody. You know, since we have another couple of minutes, and there are a couple more questions coming in, I'm gonna take like moderator's privilege and make you guys answer a couple more. So, so there's one here about SBA loans, and I saw there was one similar that was asked in and addressed in writing earlier too. But so the question is, if you qualify for an SBA loan, do you have to take it, or can you deny it and apply to this program instead? If you were going to use an SBA loan to rebuild. And then the other question that I saw, which I'm going to paraphrase because I think moved in my screen here, but I remember it being something along the lines of, if you already accepted an SBA loan but you haven't drawn any money out of it, can you, like, is that still a duplication of benefits, or can you kind of back out of that if you haven't drawn any money down?
Sorry, my mute button was not working. So I would say SBA is definitely considered a duplication of benefits. It's listed within the Federal Register notice, the guidelines that govern this sorts of funding, but would encourage everyone to come in and discuss what status their SBA loan is in, and if there are ways that or what would be considered a duplication or not within that SBA range.
Lani's asking if we're going to have another Zoom session. We are really working hard to identify a time and space where we can do another community meeting in real life, and with, you know, webinar capabilities for that as well. So the short answer is yes. And as soon as we have a space and a time locked, then we're definitely going to be announcing that to everybody, because we know there are lots more questions. And there's some things that we just are not able to answer today because they're still in progress. And as soon as those decisions are made, which should be imminent, we definitely want to get back in front of everybody and make sure that we share that information in as close to real time as possible. I think this is a John and Patience question from Councilmember Paulton. Is this correct? 422 residential permits issued and 300 plus in process. Is that correct? And is this number accurate? 900 plus owner occupied?
Well, off the top of my head, the 422 and the 300 plus in process is true. The 900 plus owner occupied, I can't remember if that's the exact right number, so I don't want to, you know, record it for the world and say that's exactly right, but I do believe the first two numbers are correct.
And Susan is just asking if we can repost the email for folks to send their questions to. So that's CDBG-DR@mauicounty.gov. And then Kukui, do you want to jump in with other ways that people can get in touch with your team and ask follow-up questions too?
So once the application is launched, we'll be available in person at both our Kahului, Maui Resource Center at Maui Mall, and also the Lahaina Recovery Center. Hours are going to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. We're going to do appointments only on Saturdays. And by the time the program launch comes, we will have a number that you can call us directly as well.
Okay, mahalo, I really appreciate that. Okay, well, we're gonna switch gears in the next couple of minutes to start this conversation up again, focusing this time on the reimbursement program, which I think is gonna be a really good discussion because there's a lot of kind of follow-up and overlap with the questions that people have about the reconstruction program. Please feel free, if you guys are planning on hanging out and participating in that 5 o'clock session and you have questions about the the reimbursement program based on what we were just talking about, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. Our team is still going to be answering questions live. So if you already know you have questions because we've been talking about some of these topics and where they overlap, go ahead and throw those questions in and we can start getting them answered for you. So I'm gonna let all of our panel take a deep breath and get a fresh cup of coffee or whatever we got to do for the caffeine for the next session. And we will see you guys back in 5 minutes. Mahalo nui. Aloha, everyone. For those of you who have been with us since 3 o'clock, thank you for hanging in. We really appreciate your curiosity and all of the really thoughtful questions about these programs. For those of you who are just joining us now to talk about the reimbursement program, welcome. We're talking tonight about Ho'okumuho, the CDBG-DR disaster recovery funded program that the county is administering. And we have our program partners here to share some information. And most importantly, we're really here to answer questions from you all. My name is Christine Matsuda, and I'm with Pa'akai Communications. And my team has been brought on to just assist a little bit, add some extra capacity as we share information about these programs with the community and open up applications, which is just right around the corner on August 11th. And we're so proud and so thankful for the opportunity to be of service to you folks in the Lahaina community. The purpose for this meeting tonight is really to share that information in advance of the opening of the applications, which again is going to be on August 11th. With all of you and answer your questions to the very best of our abilities. So we have a team of folks who are going to be presenting during this this 1 hour time period on our different program components. And so the team that's here is folks from the Office of Recovery, from CDBG-DR, and from Horn, who's been contracted by the county to support this program, as well as from CNHA's Kāko'o Maui office, who are close program partners as well. And we're all here to answer those questions and provide the information. The question answering is something I continue to emphasize because it's really, really important to us. And here's how that's going to work for tonight. You can see that there's already a really active conversation going in the question and answer function in the webinar. And so we're going to really encourage folks to use that function and please put your questions in. We have a team of people who are answering questions in real time. And, oh, excuse me, we're answering questions in real time. And so please, as those questions arise, go ahead and put them in the chat. You don't need to wait until we get to the Q&A part of our program tonight. If you have questions that we don't have a chance to get answered in our live format before the end of the hour, we also encourage you to continue sending emails to cdbg-dr@mauicounty.gov. And that email address is going to be monitored daily, and we'll be responding to emails there as well. And then our partners from CNHA's Kāko'o Maui office will talk a little bit more later in the presentation about the centers that are going to continue to be available to everybody with the additional resource of the Ho'okumuho program, and how we're going to be supporting applicants through that process as well. The last thing I'll just mention about the Q&A is that if we don't get a chance to answer your question tonight, we will do our best to follow up with you via email using the email addresses that you provided when you registered for the webinar. And we're also going to be updating FAQ on the Ho'okumuho website. So keep an eye out for that. This webinar is being recorded, which is great because we know folks have lots of different obligations, especially on a Friday night. And so if you have friends and family who wanted to know about this program, but weren't able to join us, please let them know that the recording is going to be posted to the Maui Recovers website on Monday. So please share it, take a look at it, watch it back, and think about other questions that you might have that you want to bring to our program folks that we can help to answer for everyone. So on the Zoom, on our webinar, I mentioned we have our program partners. We've got, we're going to hear from John Smith from the Office of Recovery. Then we're going to hear from Jeannie from Horn. We're going to hear from Kukui with the CNHA's Kāko'o Maui. And we're also going to be hearing from Dustin from Kāko'o Maui as well. And we've got other subject matter experts from all of these teams who are also standing by, including Patience, who is our CDBG-DR specialist, expert, who's going to be answering questions later in the Zoom as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to John to get us started. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Christine. For those that have had to hear me say this twice, I apologize. For those that are joining now for this session, thank you for joining us on a Friday evening. Our Ho'okumu Ho program is really meant to bring folks home, to bring Lahaina back, to protect it in terms of preserving it, the way we love it and know it. And so that's what's behind these programs. This is the third session tonight, and it is this particular program was born from a reaction to a need that we heard during the action plan process. We didn't have a reimbursement program originally. We went out to folks in the community. We got a lot of feedback on the possibility of doing a reimbursement program. In particular, because so many folks were already under construction and they would be basically done by the time we got this started. So we didn't know at the time exactly how the money was going to come and when the money was going to come. That's all been a hurdle that we've passed. Now that we're here, this is the program that was a pivot on our part to work with HUD to develop a reimbursement program. So we have it. We hope that it's useful. This program itself needs to pivot a little bit to meet the needs of the community. Sorry, I've been talking a lot tonight. We can do that. I said that on Wednesday as well. But love to get into this with you folks in terms of your questions and understanding how it was intended to go. So this is the far right program. So it's ideal. The ideal scenario in this one is homeowners that have completed reconstruction of their fire impacted home. We know that right now there's well over 40. I didn't look at the stats today. We're ticking off like 2, 3, 4 a week now, and I do expect that number to go up over the next several months in terms of completed projects. Those projects, along with the eligibility criteria from the programs, may be a really good fit for some of you folks on the call. And it's not necessarily meant to pay for the entire home, but it would be a way to pay down debt. So with that, I will open it up to Kukui, I believe, to run through this. Thanks, Kukui.
Thanks, Sean. It is me. So again, we're going to go over the program overview for the reimbursement. The maximum assistance amount for this is going to be $400,000, like John mentioned. The application process starts with the submission of the application, which is going to be launched on August 11th. You would then be assigned to one of our staff, and I'll go over that in just a second. You'll then go over inspection, eligibility, and duplication of benefits. Environmental review, and then we'll go ahead and calculate what the reimbursement is, and then we'll process reimbursement. The role that my team and I will be playing in this is going to be the application intake will be in our centers. So our standing center in Kahului at the Homeowner Resource Center, and then also the Lahaina Office of Recovery. We are going to be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we're going to do Saturdays by appointment. My team will be the ones that will be assigned to each applicant, and we will be the ones helping you basically finish up your application and making sure that we get you to the very end. On the screen is going to be the eligibility for the AMI. This is an AMI application. So we have listed there the 50, the 80, the 120, and the 140. This can also be found on this website. If we're going too fast on the screen, you can go back to the website to pull this up. Required documents to apply is your government ID, documents confirming your legal residence or citizenship, proof of your current property taxes, proof of your homeowner and primary residence, your income documents, your documentation of other assistance that you received. Again, this is to verify that you didn't get any duplication of benefits that are going to affect you in the long run. Proof of homeowner primary residence, proof of your current mortgage, authorization certifications, and proof of completion of your construction. I do know that some people have already given this information either to a DCM or someone who's been helping them, or have a grandchild, a sister, a friend, someone helping them with all their needs up until now, especially our kupuna population. So at that time, you can, when you join your application, you can assign what is called a communication designee, and they'll be the person that we can be in contact with in communication to help the ease of this application. The income documents, I just want to make it clear that it's tax returns and other income documents. I know that question came up a few times. So tax returns would be preferred, but we would be open to accepting other income documents. Thank you. I think it's Jeannie now.
Thank you, Kukui. All right. So as I have stated with other programs, the reimbursement program has similar goals in that it is recognizing the work that families are doing that have already rebuilt. We know lots of people are out there making their best efforts to get their homes back together and get back home where they need to be. So the intention of this program also is to, balance financial interests of existing homeowners and help to set them up for success in long-term affordability moving forward. So as previously discussed, the assistance amount for this program is up to $400,000. That is based on unmet needs. So that will be based on the amount that's what was paid towards the reconstruction of the home. This will be again considered on a case-by-case basis. We'll take a look at the cost that you incurred when you reconstructed the home. As a requirement for receiving those reimbursement funds, participants are required to live in their home for a long period of time, though that period of time will potentially be adjusted based on the range of assistance and the amount of assistance that you received, and could be as long as 99 years. As previously discussed, these terms are under consideration because we received a lot of feedback on Wednesday, and the county is working to evaluate what is the best way to ensure that these program goals are achieved. Awesome. So we did, again, on Wednesday, receive some awesome questions. And so we are looking to try to answer those ahead of time so that folks can get some clear guidance on what terms might apply to them. So the long-term commitments, the question comes up about, will my heirs have to accept these restrictions? So in most cases, yes, but if that happens or an heir is assuming the property down the road, it's an important conversation to have with the county and see what terms may be inherited by the heirs. Duplication of benefits. The duplication of benefits does apply in the instance of the reimbursement program as well. Sorry about that. So duplication of benefits may take into account FEMA, SBA loans, private insurance received, or any other funds received from nonprofit organizations. I just want to emphasize that you are still eligible even if you received those funds. Bring all those documents with your application and get them submitted, and then the program staff will work with you to determine how much you might be eligible for. Sorry, my mute button is broken, I think. So the what happens if you're in the middle of reconstruction? I know this question has come up a lot today. So unfortunately, if you're in the middle of reconstruction, there's a couple of ways that you can go about this. So if you can finish reconstruction before you submit your application, then you could potentially be eligible for reimbursement. If you're not able to finish construction, again, come up a lot today, that's where it could be a referral to another community agency might be in your best interest, and the county is continually evaluating the availability of programs. If you already spent more on your rebuilds than what the cap will cover, start your application, and again, we'll take a look at what has been spent on your particular project on an individual basis.
All right, ways to apply. As it was mentioned, applications open on August 11th. There's going to be a few ways online at ho'okumuho.mauicounty.gov. You can download the app. The Maui Office of Recovery app will be available when the application launches on either the Google Play Store, turn my camera, there I am, or the Apple App Store. Or you can visit an intake center at either the Lahaina Gateway or Maui Mall, like Kukui said. You'll be able to upload your documents via the app, but if it's easier for you, like Kukui said, our team will be here to support you in getting those done in person. And then also, like she said, if you're working with a disaster case manager or you'd like to designate a family member to assist you with that process, that's something you can do as well. It does get overwhelming. So if you need to lean on your people for support, by all means, we'll figure out a way to make it work for you.
Okay, so that was an incredibly efficient presentation, which I love. You guys, thank you so much because it gives us lots of time for Q&A. So we really, really appreciate creating space for us to make sure that we're answering all of the questions of the folks who are taking the time to attend the webinar this evening. We have a number of questions that have been answered by the team behind the scenes, just even while that presentation was going. So I'm going to go ahead and just review some of those questions out loud in case we have folks who weren't reading along in that Q&A function as people formulate some additional questions that they might want to throw in. So there was a great question from Matt. Thank you, Matt, about how the reimbursement works. Matt said in the other programs, money goes directly at closing or to the contractor. And will this program pay out directly to the homeowner? So can I ask any one of our panelists to respond to that? I'm going to invite you guys to come back on camera. Kukui, Jeannie, John, Patience. Hello. And I guess I better open my camera too. And see if anybody wants to address that. The answer that was given in the written version is reimbursement payments will be made to the qualified applicant. Is there anything else that folks want to add about how that process will work and any other details that people might be curious about?
Yeah, absolutely. So reimbursement program, again, final inspection, construction completion must be done before submitting an application. As Kukui mentioned, once the eligibility is determined, there will be a meeting set up with the case management team and the homeowner who will be able to come in and sign all the required documents and then go ahead and get that reimbursement check. Again, it's since the construction will be complete, all the funds will have been paid out by the homeowner prior to application. So it's reimbursement for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeannie. So there are also some questions in here about if you've kind of already started rebuilding. And I think, we've been talking a lot about this, that there's a program for if you haven't done anything to rebuild yet, that's the reconstruction program. And there's a program for if you're already done, which is this one, the reimbursement program. What do you do if you're right in the middle? I just want to emphasize something that was already mentioned, but it bears repeating because it's important, is you should go ahead and start your application. We're doing pre-enrollment for this program. And so if you are in a position where you're still in construction, we want to know that you're out there and that you might be interested in reimbursement. And so this is something that, was already mentioned earlier in the webinar, but I just really want to bring that back up to say, like, if you're in that in-between space, still go in there and do your pre-enrollment so that the team knows that you are interested in those funds and can kind of plan accordingly, knowing that there are folks out there who are still looking to finish and looking to get that reimbursement. Don't wait to apply until you're done. You can still go ahead and open your application now. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Christine, I think that is a really good point. And, I think everybody likes to do math and figure out like how much money do we have in this program and that program and how is that going to, game out at the end of the day. I'll go back to the intent. We're trying to get people home. So we have these two programs. We have the reimbursement program and we have the reconstruction program, and we can work those two in conjunction with each other. The messiest way to get involved with HUD is to jump in the middle of a construction project. Like if you really want to slow things down, put HUD in the middle of your construction project. So, and that's kind of why the reimbursement program came about. If we need to pivot on how we do the reimbursement program to help the most people, we can do that. We have some flexibility to do that. So again, if you can finish your project, please apply for this program. If you can't finish your project, you don't know where to go, still apply. And we want to know where you are. So I'll just state it that way. Keep asking these questions and keep giving us the info that we need to help the most people. We did the action plan at a point in time many months ago now. We did these programs at a point in time, and now we are at this point in time in the process, and we will continue to morph these programs to meet the situation at hand. So I'll stop there. Just keep talking about intent and keep talking about, if you don't know, please apply.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's really helpful. So there's a question, well, two questions actually that are connected to each other. How much funding is there for each category, and what are the restrictions again? So maybe we can just reiterate that.
Do you want to, there's several categories too. So the overall is the 1.63 billion, and within those categories, there are a number of different programs. The set aside for housing overall is around 900 million. The set aside for the Homeowner Reconstruction Program and the reimbursement program that's included in that is, what is it again, Jeannie? I don't want to. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I was pulling up my cheat sheet to double check. So it's around $290 million for the housing reconstruction reimbursement.
Yeah. The original, and we stated this on Wednesday, the original set aside for the reimbursement program was $10 million. It is $10 million. We do have some flexibility to adjust that if we need to.
And a couple of really easy ones to answer, but definitely are worth elevating so everybody can hear. Will the funds that you get in reimbursement be taxable?
Jeannie?
Yeah, so federal grant funds, I think we might need to get an official answer on that before we can get back to you, but I do not believe so, but we'll double check on that.
Oh, shucks, I thought that was going to be such a simple one. Okay, and then here's another one. What do we need to show that construction is completed? What are we going to have to bring to demonstrate that we are in fact done? So the answer that was supplied in writing is evidence of a past municipal final inspection. Any other notes for our community members about, process-wise, what they should be doing maybe while they're finishing up construction, any other documentation that they're going to need, or plans that they should make to be able to come ready with a package of paperwork?
Nope, that's pretty much it. The final inspection. And I think the most important thing now, if you're in construction, is make sure you're complying with local permitting and code requirements.
Okay, so
I'm going to
go ahead, John.
Before we get off the topic of what am I saying about applying, I saw another one in the chat. I don't know what the answer was given, but we're saying apply because we're going to have a checkbox in the system that's like, if you're in between programs, we'll have a checkbox that takes that information, and we'll figure out either it's one or the other, or it may be a really good scenario to refer to our partner agencies that are not doing DR work, but they are doing work to help people finish their construction projects. Get your construction project done outside of DR, and then have the possibility for reimbursement. So that's a scenario So so what we're saying is come in, apply, give us your situation so that we can work together with our partner agencies. Hope that helps a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's really good. Okay, so let's see. This would definitely be a question that I would have if I were in this program, and looking around at the place that I am in. Can we be reimbursed for unlicensed contractor work that we paid for out of pocket?
So contractor fraud is taken into account as in the duplication of benefits calculation. So if someone's applying and they, let's say, got insurance, got FEMA, all of that sort of thing, and they paid some of that money towards a contractor, that would potentially be used to reduce that duplication of benefit consideration that they may have. So that's a super great scenario to have a case manager sit down and hash through all of the documents and take a look at and figure out how we can navigate that with the CDBG-DR program. But essentially, that's not counted against the applicant if they spent funds towards a contractor that did not come through for them.
But I think at the end of the day, if you have a I think you kind of went towards the potential fraud question that could be associated with that. But I think just to answer the basic question, like if you didn't use a licensed contractor, there is the owner builder route in Maui County. So that means you still had all your inspections done and you got your occupancy or you got your final inspection. You can do that the owner builder route. And as long as you have that final inspection, then that's what would make you eligible for this program. So not talking about fraud, talking about, we did it ourselves kind of scenario. That is, but you still have to follow county code. Like you have to build the house to code. If you don't build the house to code, then it's not eligible. Hope that helps.
That does. That's a very important distinction and a good note for folks as they're kind of making their plans. So we have talked about this in some of the context of the other programs and just want to make sure we get some clarity on this about asset limitations. Are there asset limitations for either the reconstruction bucket or the reimbursement program?
Not at this time, no. The only program that has an asset limitation is the Homebuyer Assistance Program.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So Janice has a question clarifying why SBA loans are considered duplication of benefits, which I totally get the question. That is confusing because it's not a grant. It's a loan. So could you folks, maybe Jeannie, I've heard you explain this really well before, talk about why that's something that HUD considers a duplication of benefits?
Yeah, so SBA loans are a federal funding source that come in the form of a subsidized loan. So they're explicitly listed as a duplication of benefit in this set of rules that HUD provides for CDBG-DR funds. So unfortunately, there's no way around us being able to consider them as a duplication of benefit, even though you do end up having to pay them back.
And we've got some questions here about timelines. So the question from Krista is, can we consider extending the application window for the program because many folks who are building are not going to be done in 6 months? So wondering if, just to like make sure we land this really clearly, as the program is designed currently, what are the timelines for getting in an application, for when you need to be done with your build in order to be, considered for this? And kind of how all of those pieces fit together. If you could kind of lay that out for us again.
Yeah, as currently designed, it's a 6-month window. We've already said that we would consider an extension on that based on the circumstances. So that's number one. And then it's at the time of application that you'd have your final inspection. But again, that's something that we can talk through. So I don't want that to be a discouragement to application in this scenario, because we understand, I mean, we have the data from all of the and this was brought up too, can't we just screen all of the existing permits to see how far along they are? And that's, you know, that's something we can do too. And will do. So I'm just explaining how it's designed. If we need to make some tweaks to how that design works, we can. Please give us your scenarios. Please come in and talk to us and apply.
Yeah, mahalo for that. And I'll just emphasize something that we said earlier, like just saying again, underscoring John's point, please come in and apply, because if we don't have the information about where folks are at, and how many people are interested in this program, then the program's going to be in the dark. And it's really important to have an understanding of how many people are in that position, and what the interest is and what the need is. So thank you very, very much for that. So Rhonda, thank you very much for raising this. Jeannie, you were talking about the sort of fraudulent contractor situation earlier. So I'm going to just read Rhonda's question. And thanks for pointing this out. There are approximately 30 families using the same fraudulent contractor with unfinished, partially constructed homes who need gap funding assistance to finish construction. In their current state, they do not qualify for loans. Some of the build will need to be redone. How many of this group can be considered for this program? John, do you want to start? Then Jeannie, or see both of you have open mics.
Yeah, it
Go
is.
ahead, John.
I'm just leaving mine open now at this point. But no, Rhonda, we know, I've actually sat down with some of those owners myself, and my heart just broke when I understood what was happening. And I know you've sat down with more than I have. So we've got to tackle this one together, because it's really, really hard for HUD, the way the program works, for them to get involved. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it definitely isn't something, it's not a quick fix. We will be leaning on our community partners to help with this particular problem in Lahaina. It's unfortunate. We did engage with prosecutor's office and continue to do so. I can't talk about all that, but there is action being taken for some of these issues. So thank you for bringing that up. And that's something that we'll be talking about. I think I'll be talking to you about this next Wednesday with the mayor, actually. So thank you for that. But go ahead, Jeannie.
I think you addressed that better than I did, so, or would have, so go ahead. All good.
Yeah, and we just want to make sure that, like, on behalf of all of us on the camera side of the webinar, to acknowledge Rhonda, you folks, and your amazing work on behalf of the community. And you are doing an amazing job, and we really, really appreciate everything that you guys do. And thank you for raising that really important issue and bringing that into the space, because that's definitely something, like John said, that everybody needs to work together on to support those families. So thank you.
You know, one of the reasons why HUD is so specific on how we do these programs is to stop things like that. It does make it cost more money for us to build homes with this program. And it's just unfortunate that problem exists. Every disaster community experiences it, unfortunately. But thanks for that.
Okay, now Dina is asking if we can say who the contractor is. So Dina, I'm just going to say you should go talk to Rhonda and you guys go talk story. Okay. The questions are slowing down considerably, and I'm wondering if that means that we have answered the questions, or if that means I need to take a moment to encourage folks who have been sitting on their questions through the duration of this, and encourage you guys to go ahead and ask, because this is the moment. Again, if there are things that you think about later tonight that you didn't get a chance to ask, or it didn't show up in the front of your mind until you're taking a shower later on, please email. We want to make sure that we're communicating with everybody and getting as much information out about these programs as we can. So that email again is cdbg-dr@mauicounty.gov. cdbg-dr@mauicounty.gov. And so even if you guys don't have questions right in this very moment, please, hit that email address, send your questions, or refer folks if you think they might have questions that they need to get answered. And again, we're going to be taking the recording of this webinar. We're going to post it on Monday so that people can watch it back and think it over, digest the information. And we're going to be in constant communication, constant contact with you guys throughout the launch of applications and beyond. So there are going to be lots of opportunities for folks to be in conversation and get additional questions answered. So, okay, we've got a couple questions. Thank you guys. Oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
No, sorry for jumping in. I'm rude sometimes. I apologize. Or I'll lose my thought process, but I know that we had a number of community partners on this call. I see Habitat weighing in. I know there's several others, and this is not normal to do this in this kind of setting, but we've been waiting to get these programs ready to launch just so that we can come engage with you to how to solve some of these problems that DR can't solve. So we're really looking forward to meeting with you folks individually and in a group setting. So that's something that's coming in the very near future. So if you're a provider and you want to make sure that we don't miss you in that, I've got a pretty long list that I'm staring at in my office right now to meet with. And I'm sure several of you have tried to get a hold of me in the past few weeks and couldn't. And I apologize for that, but we needed to do it this way to get the programs rolling so that we can get all the ones that we can help right now out the door, and then we're going to tackle these problems together. So I just wanted to say that real quick, and then we can get back to the questions.
Okay, well, we've got one that is a really good one. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering. And this is, I think, a John and Patience question. When are we going to have the program guidelines finalized?
Before the 11th. Yeah, so next week.
Next week. Yep. So in the next 10 days, the program guidelines will all be finalized. Okay, let's see here. We've got a couple more questions just coming in. Kyahi asks, it seems like there will be a flood of applicants on the 11th. Maybe at least limit applications to Lahaina fire victims initially, since island-wide people are going to be eligible for the first-time home buyer program.
We won't go to the list that's not survivors until we've exhausted the other list. So you guys should understand that. But we can't not open it that way so we don't violate fair housing rules. So, but I do want you to understand that we're going to go to the survivor list first.
And is there an application deadline?
Right now it's 6 months from the 11th. So whatever day that is.
Jeannie, I saw you unmute and then mute again. So it seems like you have something to add, but I have something to add, which is don't wait. If you're not sure if you want to participate in the program, but you think maybe you want to hold that possibility open, go ahead and try apply. And to the earlier point of that question, and there's going to be a rush of applications. I think that's a good thing. And we are able to accommodate the rush of applications because there's that online application, there's the app-based, and then for folks who prefer, there's also the ability to come into the center and see Kukui and her team and sit down and have somebody like walk you through it, right? So there are multiple different ways that you can apply. And if you go ahead and get that process started, then it holds the possibility open for folks to come back and say, yes, I do want to participate in this. But if you wait until the very end, then that window of possibility just gets narrower. So please, we're really encouraging everybody to go ahead and start their applications when they open. Jeannie, is there anything else you want to add?
Jeannie, do you want to talk about like just typically how notice of award works? Because I'm seeing some questions. There's this question about rebuilding and how do we guarantee reimbursement? So say someone comes in and is qualified and is qualified for reimbursement. Like typically, how will that process work as far as notification so that they can plan and understand how much they got? Just talk in general about it, but I think that's worth noting.
Yeah, so the notice of award process again, and I'll kind of back up a little bit and start at intake and application. So once your application is submitted, you'll go through what's called an intake review, where a case manager or program staff will review all the documents that were submitted and make sure everything's there. Next, eligibility. So eligibility is where we'll confirm income, and all of the documents that you presented are showing what we need to for the program compliance. For the reimbursement program, it is important to understand that an environmental review gets done. Even though the construction's been complete, it seems a little counterintuitive, but this is how HUD designed this kind of model. And so that environmental review gets completed. That process can take a little bit. So 45, 60, even as much as 90 days, depending on the historical significance of the property. So after that is done, then for the reimbursement program, pretty much everything else is good. All the paperwork's reviewed at that point. Once the environmental review is done, then the award comes in. And that award is just a notification and a meeting, like I said, with a case manager who's going to sit down, sign all the necessary documents with you, and then hand that reimbursement check over.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so there's a question here. If I'm currently rebuilding and I want to apply for the reimbursement program on August 11th, how is the county planning on guaranteeing me reimbursement when my home is completed? So just to kind of help to frame that question a little bit too, right? We're saying, please apply, please apply, please apply, pre-enroll, get us your information, but you're not yet done with your rebuild. Is there any way to guarantee that funds will still be available on the back end?
I, well, we are obligated to help the lowest income first. And so we can't say right now how long those funds will go. We have projections, and that's what some of our limitations on how we've done categories are based on. As those projections line up with reality, we'll make adjustments. So the idea is to stretch it as far as we can, but there's no way we can say how far out we could guarantee it today. But we will, as you apply, have much better data on that so that you can understand where you are, or if you're going to really have a chance at getting a reimbursement. So we can't answer that today. We will be able to answer it more definitively as the program goes on. And it's like, again, the reason why we want you to come in and tell us your situation. So I know that's not the emotionally satisfying answer that you want, but it is the answer today that we can give.
There's also a question here about kind of what counts under and what's reimbursable. So the question is, can this program reimburse homeowners for add-ons, like a rock wall that was added that wasn't there pre-disaster?
So for reimbursement, it's not going to be like line item for line item reimbursement. We're going to be looking at what was the total cost to reconstruct your primary dwelling unit, and provide assistance or reimbursement based on that overall cost. And in most cases, the assumption is that the cost to reconstruct the home, less any duplication of benefits, is going to be pretty close to the cap. So I think that covers it.
So there are also some scenarios, I'm just going to add on to this question, where a house that had to be rebuilt had to have different things on it, maybe more expensive things than it had before the fire. So one example might be if a homeowner chose to put solar panels on their roof. Another example is like if you had a cesspool, but in order to rebuild, right, you have to put a septic system now, and that's a different cost. So are those kinds of add-ons or different things, solar panels, septic systems, that sort of stuff, reimbursable?
Again, the home that the homeowner is currently completing or has completed prior to submitting their application needs to be constructed in compliance with all local code requirements, which includes those solar panels for the water heaters and the septic installation. So yes, we're looking at the total cost to construct the home in a code compliant manner, including all of the necessary upgrades for mitigation and or solar, et cetera.
Yeah, so if it's required by code, it's potentially eligible. But things like a pool, no. Like
Christine, if I can, there's one question in there that I do want to point out. I think there was a direct question about scheduling appointments for intake. So we do have the option starting on August 11th. Applicants who need some extra assistance completing the application will be able to go online and schedule an appointment with one of Kukui's awesome team members to complete the intake if they need some extra assistance. So those appointments will be available online.
we are not intending to make a mad rush scenario on August 11th at the recovery center. So that won't be necessary. If you're worried about like whether I get in on August 11th or not, please do not have that worry in your mind. You have reasonable amount of time to make an appointment and come in with us. That is not going to change how these decisions are decided. I just want to point that out too. I'm getting the sense that some people were like, I'm going to have to be there at 7:59 but that's not the scenario. We are not trying to create that scenario. It's not intended to be that way, and it won't matter to the way this thing goes. So I just want to throw that out there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just emphasize again that the website is going to be a great way to start your application, as well as the app. And so both of those things are going to be available prior to the 11th, so that they're ready to roll when applications open. And so you can start working on it just, in the comfort of whatever space you're at, when you're on your lunch break at work, whatever. And then come in and see Kukui and team as needed if you want that additional support. So the website and the mobile app are going to be really, really good resources. Okay. So let's see, I think we have answered all of the questions that have been offered in the question function here in the webinar. So I'll invite everybody on our panel to just give any closing thoughts, any points of emphasis, any messages that you want to make sure that we share with folks. And then, last call for questions from the group. Any thoughts you folks want to share?
I don't know if it's a good stat or probably a good stat. 271 questions answered is fairly significant. I don't know what to compare it against, but awesome, really webinar, and it almost makes me feel like this is the setting to do this particular rollout. But anyway, this was great, and I really appreciate all of the thoughtful questions and the thoughtful responses by our team. You guys killed it, and we'll take this to shape how these programs move forward. Really good stuff. I know everybody wants to get home on a Friday night, so I won't belabor it any further. I'm going to turn my camera off so you don't have to look at me anymore.
I just want to reiterate what was said in the last two sessions. Apply. It's not a one size fits all. We're going to work with you the best we can. So just apply. That's all.
That's it. I think everybody said it really well.
Okay, well, mahalo nui loa, everybody. We're just so grateful for everyone's time. We appreciate the thoughtful questions. And I guess last word from me as the moderator for this thing is please stay in conversation with us, and we want to stay in conversation with you. So reach out, send us emails. You're going to see us in community. We really want to make ourselves available so that we can share as much information about this process as it starts to get rolling, and we can get your answers, get your questions, get your feedback as well, because it's super important to all of us. So thank you for taking the time. We're truly grateful. And I hope you guys have a great evening. Mahalo nui.